Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that, the moon over Azay Le Ferron. Only half a moon. Someone's stolen the other half. Little bit different tonight. I posted a comment on a video about religion. Now, those of you that follow the same people that I follow know that amongst them there are people of all religions and none. Some of them are pastors, assistant pastors. Some of them are the children of preachers. My videos do get watched by a handful of clergy. I would have thought they had better things to do than to watch the nonsense that I post. But my silly minor comment elicited a question from a chap. Funny enough, chap with the same surname as me, in fact. I'm not sure he knows that because, as you all know, on YouTube I'm Harry Faber, but some of you know that's not my real name at all. My real name is Adrian Smith. Yeah, there's reasons for that. Now, this particular chap has a little difficulty that he, like myself, finds himself living in a country not of his birth. And he was hoping I could give some advice on joining a church. I've got a couple of things that I need to just quickly do. Don't go away. Right, okay, where was I? We were looking at this wonderful vine. Those of you that read the Bible will know that there's lots and lots of references to vines, and in some references there's talk about the branch that doesn't bear fruit. You cut it off and you burn it. Apparently. I cut them off. I haven't got round to burning them because in this part of the country we're not allowed bonfires until October. There are good reasons for that. Anyway, where were we? Advice on joining a church in a foreign country. I guess some of that will depend on where you are on your particular path. A lot of people will talk about being on a path, a journey as it were. Now, where I came from, I had access to lots of churches, lots and lots of them. Baptist, Methodist, Church of England, Roman Catholic, all gathered fairly close together. And I found myself in conversations with ministers and deacons and members of congregations, and then I sort of got lucky that I found that amongst my existing friends there were people who, when I started talking about going to churches, I suddenly found that I knew people who did go to church of all of those different denominations. And one very famous day I bumped into a Roman Catholic priest in some quite particular and strange circumstances that I can't really talk about here. However, what that Roman Catholic priest said to me is it isn't about denominations, it's about God. If you want to find out more about God, then it's a pretty good idea to start going to a church. And he was quite open and honest, and he said, I don't mind what church you go to. He offered me, should I want it, he offered me access to himself in the presbytery in a Roman Catholic church. But he was quite content that, you know, to start with, you need to talk to people who can talk sensibly and point you in right directions towards finding out a little bit about religion. Now, I did, and one or two of you know a little bit more about my path than others. I started going and chatting to people. Now, I was very lucky in luck, godly providence maybe. I found myself talking to a priest who, one way or another, he's taught me an awful lot. Not simply about the church at which he was a priest. He also taught me about all sorts of things that different churches will expect and will do and will believe, and some of their dogmas and some of their practices, and the different ways that different churches celebrate their services. You know, some of those differences sound like gibberish to people who don't go to church. You know, I hear debates about real presence or the symbolic nature of the Eucharist, and people get sometimes quite tied up with all of that. Well, don't worry too much about all of that to start with. So, I had a pretty thorough understanding of what I could expect to happen in specifically Roman Catholic churches in rural France. Now, why Roman Catholic churches? Well, here in Azay-le-Ferron there is one church. It has a service once a fortnight. The other Sunday of the fortnight, the service will be in one of the other neighbouring churches. There isn't a choice. Here, if you go to church, you go to a Roman Catholic church, like it or not. That's what we've got. If you want to go to Anglican church services, the nearest place that I could do that would be in Poitiers. I'm aware of an Anglican chaplaincy in Poitiers. Also aware of a very, very ancient baptistry there, which is well worth a visit. I digress. So, how does one join a church in a country where you don't speak the language? Well, you suck it up and you walk in through the door. And somewhere in that church there will be a notice board, and somewhere in whatever language they use there will be clues as to when the next service is. So that's what I did. I went to the church of Saint-Nazaire and I read the notice board, and lo and behold, they'd got a service 9:30 on the Sunday. So 9:15 on the Sunday, I walked in, and some ladies who, how do we describe them, older than me, they said lots of things to me in very, very rapid French, and I hadn't really got a clue what they said, and anyway, they spoke to me. And the following Sunday I went to a church. Now, from memory, I think the next Sunday was the church in Polnay, which is a delightful small church. There was all the same people. They said hello, we all shook hands. Yes, we shake hands. And they rabbited to me quickly, and the following week I went again. Because I'm a persistent sort of bloke. Now, the priests, we've got a little team ministry of several priests. None of them speak English. But they're all fairly pleasant, easy to get along with sort of people. And they did, in the service, they did exactly the same as a priest in England would do. A priest in a Roman Catholic church in England. You know, the order of service is exactly the same. And they had printed sheets so that the congregation can follow along with the lectionary readings. Now, yeah, true enough, it was all in French. And I guess if you're somewhere in Belgium, they might be in French, they might be in Dutch. Who knows? The way to find out, of course, is to go along. Now, I cheat. I've always cheated all my life. What I do on a Sunday morning is I get up and, using the good old internet, I look up what the daily readings will be. I read the lectionary. And I read it in English that I understand. And having been going to church for more than 3 years, not much more, but more, I've heard homilies. Now, homilies should draw their theme from one of the readings, you know, whether it's the epistle or the gospel. And in the Roman Catholic Church, in the Church of England, they follow a 3-year cycle of readings, and I believe the Lutheran Church does the same. The Methodist Church certainly does the same. So if you've been going to church for more than 3 years, you've probably heard the readings, and you probably have heard homilies. And all good homilies will be slightly different. A preacher, a priest, a minister will draw from the readings different aspects, different points that should be made. Now, the service itself, if you find yourself, you know, and I think of some of you, I know one of you who has never been to a service in a Roman Catholic church. Some of you will suddenly find that there's a moment in the service where the priest will elevate the host. Now, for those of you that don't go to church, the host is a little round sort of wafer. Quite improperly, I used to call it a biscuit. It's not. It's bread of sorts. It's a little wafer in a Catholic church, and the priest will elevate it, and people stand up. And if you're in a Catholic church, of course, there'll be a bell rung. Depending how good their various acolytes and folk are, it will be rung. Is it? I can never quite remember. Once as he elevates and 3 times as he lowers, or the other way round. But the service will follow exactly the same pattern as a service in England, or North America, or Italy. So you go along. Strongly advise, whatever country you're in, for general reasons, not just going to church, for general reasons, it's actually very, very good to try and learn as much of the local dialect and local language as possible. And it is true to say that the congregation here in Azay-le-Ferrol, they are the sort of people that will show an interest in you. Sadly, there are churches in the world that you could walk into, and sadly some churches you will be ignored. I've seen that in some churches, but most churches there will always be old Doreen who will make you welcome. Every church has got an Ethel who makes pickled onions, who will welcome you and ask you if you want pickled onions when she does some. Those people exist. They really are there in congregations. They will talk to you. It is difficult for me because, oh, there's an interesting bird going over. A kestrel or a kite or something. Because here a lot of the older people don't even speak French. They speak a dialect, and I tell them that they need to speak slowly to me, and they do for 3 words, and then they're back to full speed. But just go along. They will capture you. Go along. The priest will recognise that he's got a new face. I've never yet met a priest who doesn't speak to the new face in the church. You know, their job is to draw people in. Their job is to help people on the path. So there we are. If you've got any questions on this subject, please feel free to ask them. If I don't know an answer, and everyone knows that there's a lot of questions that I really don't know the answer, if I don't know the answer, I am confident that between my physical friends here in France, friends I have that I speak to regularly on the telephone, and my internet friends, I'm sure we can help, and we can guide, and we can give answers more or less complete. But there we are. If you want to join a church, well, join a church. Look at that. The light is just about gone, isn't it? Yeah, it's time for me to edit this video, drink my tea, and go to bed.